Hello, sports fans, and welcome to the Press Box. I'm your host, Jeff Richardson. I'm going to be joined by our usual cast of suspects tonight, Ty Reynolds and Jeff Tobin. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes talking about this week in sports. I'd like to remind you guys this is a live show, and if you have any questions or comments, call us at 873-6713. Let's go ahead and get started. We got a first time happening tomorrow, guys, the SEC Championship football game.
This is really exciting, and this may set a trend for other conferences, Jeff, but the focus of America is going to be on the SEC, simply because not only is it the major game, but also it's going to have a significance on several bowl games that are going to be played on New Year's Day. I really look at Alabama to really control this game with their line of scrimmage and their offense. This is really going to be a big test for Florida's young offensive linemen and how they can handle people like Eric Curry and John Copeland, who have just really destroyed quarterbacks this year.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a big thing with this because it's the first time that a conference has had a championship game. You've got Alabama. There's a lot of big factors you have to consider here. Alabama's undefeated, the first SEC team this late in the season to be undefeated. The SEC hadn't had national champions since 1980 when Georgia was able to do it. So they're 11-0. If they beat Florida, they can go 12-0 and have a shot at Miami. There's a lot of payback in the minds of Alabama fans and players after last year's shellacking down in Gainesville. So this is a big game, and it's, Alabama's favored by a lot. I mean, but their defense has been so great this year. Shane Matthews is going to have his work cut out for him against the Alabama defense and the great defensive ends. Like you said, the key matchup, I think, I agree with you there, is the defensive ends of Alabama or outside linebackers against the freshman tackles. But I tell you, Florida's offensive tackles, the freshmen have done a great job all year.
Jeff, one thing I think Florida's going to have to do, they have got to get the lead. That is going to be just about the most important issue in this game, are mistakes and getting the lead. Now, of course, the weather forecast has rain. We saw Florida play up in rain and on artificial surface up in Knoxville, Tennessee. That was a disaster against a Tennessee team that was coming off a highly emotional win at Georgia, but still Tennessee turned out to be a little bit better than an average team in the conference. This is really going to be a test for Florida, how they handle this. Not only that, this is a road game for them. This is a home game for Alabama. I don't care what anyone says. Everyone in the paper has been right just about by saying this is a home game for Alabama, except, of course, for Gene Stallings. Alabama asked for 20,000 tickets. They got them. Plus, you just have to realize that this is a city and a field where Alabama plays 3 home games.
They probably got about 40,000 more people going to be wearing crimson tomorrow, I bet.
Oh, exactly. I mean, the tickets it was out in the paper, the tickets are distributed to the public, of which you're in the middle of the state of Alabama, so guess who's going to gobble those up? Plus, you got some of the schools who are going to get tickets, but then they're basically just going to sell them off to fans who want them. So the fans who have the closest access are Alabama fans. And there's an 80,000-seat facility. Florida will be lucky to have 15,000 people. They'll have more raindrops than fans, I can assure you.
Jeff, let's look at this thing a little bit closer. Florida doesn't fare too well out of their home state, and they're also on artificial turf tomorrow, which seems to be bad news usually.
Well, you've got your classic matchup. You've got a high-powered offense against a high-powered defense. Alabama's outside rush is incredibly tough. Shane Matthews, though, is a senior quarterback. I think looking at the Florida standpoint offensively, I think you have to go to Eric Rhett out of the backfield, possibly both. You have to establish some kind of running game to put a play-action pass game into effect. Eric Rhett is very effective as a receiver also, and Eric Rhett, I think, is a big key as well as Shane Matthews. If you can run draws and screens and et cetera to slow down the Alabama pass rush, you could have some success. And on the flip side of that, you have an Alabama offense which isn't really a very high-powered offense, but they're kind of very similar to Miami, which, I mean, looking forward to a possible Sugar Bowl matchup, you have the same type of team where I think Miami's offense is a little bit more talented, but at the same time, Miami's offense scores enough points to win the game, and Miami's defense stops the other team. You have the same situation with Alabama. Excuse me, but Alabama has, they've got some good players. I mean, David Palmer's a guy that could, turn a punt return, kick return. I mean, that's a big play at any time, and that's important. And it's going to be a big game. I mean, Florida has nothing to lose in this game. If they win, they go to the Sugar Bowl. If they lose, they go to the Gator Bowl. So, I mean, the pressure's, a lot of pressure's on Florida, but, you have to look at Alabama as a favorite here.
All right, I think in addition to us and the rest of the audience, two interested parties are going to be the Sugar Bowl and the rest of the conferences are going to be looking at this game to see how it's staged, how much money's made, what the TV ratings are. We may see this thing going on in other conferences in the future.
Right, and what is really going to have an effect or determine that is that if Alabama wins, because then conferences will say, look at this, they get an extra big paycheck, national TV, this is big time money. But looking on the other side here, what if Alabama loses? Well, you lose your chance for a national championship. The Sugar Bowl is going to be very unhappy if that ever happens. And then if that does happen here, if Florida does happen to upset those guys, that philosophy is going to be set back several years.
Well, let's say Florida wins this ball game and goes to the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, Miami is not going to want to go play them. Who goes to the Sugar Bowl to play Florida?
Well, you got teams such as Syracuse who might go there, possibly Colorado. The coalition would really hurt the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Jeff?
Well, one important factor looking at this, the NCAA rules are that you have to have 11 teams in a conference in order to have a playoff. Mm-hmm. Okay, what conference is going to have 11 teams in 1993? The Big Ten, or Big 11, as you want to call it. And you're talking about two conferences right now who are very weak in a lot of ways, money, et cetera. Southwest Conference is one, and the Big 8 being another. And you're talking about teams possibly out of these two conferences either forming together or going to different conferences. You've heard different things about Texas going to the Pac-10 of all places. You've heard of, the Southwest is really down. It's an all-Texas conference. So if this SEC championship game takes off, it could really mean a lot.
All right, I think we have a phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Thank you. Just had a question regarding Jerry Glanville. Do you think he's going to be back next year? It just seems like he's the Buddy Ryan type, and those kind of people just don't stick around too long. I just want to know, what do you think?
All right, that's a good question, guys. Anybody want to talk about that?
Well, Jeff, I'll hit on that first. My philosophy about Jerry Glanville staying around with the Rankin Smith family, as long as the place sells out, Jerry Glanville will stay. As for saying he's a Buddy Ryan type, I think that's almost a compliment to basically to Glanville. I think Buddy Ryan's a pretty good football coach. Jerry Glanville, to me, his defense is just suffering. They stay out on the field a long time, and I really don't think he has the personnel to be able to really shut down a team and get the ball back for his offense. He's got some high-powered players on his offense, but it's not going to do you any good if you can't get the football.
Well, I'll put this in a simple term. You and I were talking about this the other evening. Look at 1991 and the two best teams as far as run and shoot. You had Detroit and you had Houston. Houston had the shoot with Warren Moon, and Detroit had the run with Barry Sanders. Now, this year Detroit went away from the run and shoot for the simple fact that they lost a lot of offensive linemen, were unable to continue to run that kind of offense. Warren Moon got hurt, and that hurt Houston, although Houston actually has played fairly well under Carlson. Atlanta, your two key players in your run and shoot, your quarterback and your running back. Atlanta has Chris Miller, who is not a mobile quarterback like a Warren Moon, and running back, who? Broussard, Smith. You've got a bunch of decent running backs, but nobody, the capability of Barry Sanders, of course, there's very few who are. They have the offensive line, they have the receivers to run this offense, but do they have the quarterback and running backs? I don't know. I think it might be a time for a change in offense, and that might have to happen for Jerry Glanville to save his job.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that there's some other teams in the NFL that run the run and shoot offense, and they're not having very good years either. Ty, I might disagree with you. I think Glanville's out of here after next year.
Well, it won't hurt my feelings if I'm wrong.
Right,
I'm old-fashioned, and I believe that defense and kicking wins football games, along with the strong running game. And Jeff, you noticed earlier this year that a lot of quarterbacks are getting hurt, and a lot more teams are out there depending on the run because a lot more teams are out there looking out for the pass. To me, I just think defense wins football games, and here it is, the Falcons give up more points than anyone.
Well, you're going to have more 1,000-yard rushers this year than you had a year ago, and for previous years for a long time. You've got Foster with Pittsburgh. You've got Thurman Thomas, Emmitt Smith. I mean, last year you had three top rushers in Smith, Sanders, and Thomas. This year you're going to have a few more added to that class. More teams are running the football because the situation's there. I mean, football is a very transitional game. You go offense to defense. You go running to passing. Obviously the quarterback has been the most important player the last few years, the passing offense. But now the running's coming back. I mean, Bill Cowher went into Pittsburgh with, nobody gave this guy a chance to go 9-3 after 12 games. And look what he's done. I mean, he's basically run the ball. The quarterback has been good enough for them to win. The defense has played well. So it's been a different year in the NFL this year.
All right, let's go back to the phones here right quick. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I want to say, do you think Jerry Glanville going to start Wade Wilson for the rest of the season? Because what I see, Wade Wilson seems to be the one that pick up the offense.
I personally think Wade Wilson's a better quarterback. Thanks for your call. Guys, any opinions?
Well, Wade Wilson is definitely more adept to this offense than Billy Joe Tolliver. Billy Joe's got a great arm. He's very, he's a real tough guy. He'll sit in the pocket and he'll take a hit. He'll take off running. He's not mobile, but he's a tough guy. As far as stamina and stuff like that, Billy Joe's sitting there. But Wade Wilson's been around for a long time. Minnesota ran a one-back offense for a lot of years, so he's used to being able to scramble. He's got good receivers. I think Wade Wilson at this time of the season might be your better quarterback.
Well, Jerry Glanville's unpredictable, so God only knows what he's going to do. Personally, I would play Wade Wilson, but then, with Glanville involved, I could be 100% wrong.
Well, Wade might say something about Jerry's motorcycle and get in the doghouse and never play again. You just can't tell with this guy. I think we have another phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, thank you. I had a question regarding running backs this year, Garrison, Hurst, and Marshall Faulk. Who do you think is a better runner? I just think Garrison seems to be running against a higher level of competition, and that should count for something when the Heisman vote are tallied. So who do you think is a better runner?
All right, well.
I don't think you're going to get a disagreement on stage here.
Thanks for your call there, by the way.
Marshall Faulk is an excellent running back. He's got all the skills. He's powerful. He's for a small back, he's powerful. He's got speed. He's looked great against BYU and Wyoming and New Mexico State and teams like that. Garrison Hurst, on the other hand, has looked great against some your better teams. He had over 160 yards against Tennessee. He had over 160 yards against Georgia Tech. He only had 40 yards against Florida, but he only had it in 11 to 14 carries. He was used more as a decoy in that game, and I think that hurt Georgia's offensively. Faulk, no doubt. You're talking about two guys who are going to make a lot of money in the NFL, in my opinion. And I don't know if Hurst is going to win the Heisman this year. I really think Gino Torres is going to win it just because people look at the number one team and who the quarterback is, and you look at his record. I don't think Toretta's overly great, but at the same time, you have to admire the guy's record, and he's performed well enough in big games to win it.
Jeff Richardson, what you told me when Faulk had that great game against Brigham Young? Too bad Herschel didn't run in the WAC.
Well, there you go.
The WAC puts all their talent on offense. And in the Southeastern Conference, you're going to have talent on both sides of the football and a whole lot of speed. And Florida and Auburn were perfect examples of that. And you're going to see tomorrow the type of speed Alabama has, not only on their defensive line, but with their linebackers. They're all over the place. Without a doubt, Garrison Hurst has gone against some great players this year. And I agree, he's gone against the tougher competition. Not only that, Hurst has shown me the ability to come out of the backfield and catch a pass. He caught a bomb against Auburn. And he also caught a little swing pass against Ole Miss and turned it into about a 65-yard touchdown play.
All right, do you think he's going to win the Heisman before we get off the subject?
No, I agree with Jeff. I think Toretta's going to win. There's a lot of northern votes up there. Miami's in the Big East. They're going to get the votes from the East. And then Georgia was hardly ever on national television. ABC comes out and regionalizes everything. They'll sit there and grab North Carolina and North Carolina State, and then they'll sit there and regionalize Wake Forest and Maryland the same weekend. They regionalize everything. So it's almost impossible to see a nationally televised game unless you're Notre Dame.
Well, unfortunately, I got a bad feeling that Toretta may win it also. I think Garrison deserves it, but the most deserving guy doesn't always get the award. So let's go ahead and I'd like to remind my tech buddies from a couple of weeks ago that we're waiting for your call here. Let's talk about that ball game last Saturday, guys. Georgia won sort of a squeaker, although it was 2 touchdowns at the end.
Well, that was a good win for Georgia. Anytime Georgia beats Tech, that's a good win for Georgia. They did the things that they were supposed to do, but their defense, I really think, was suspect. Here it is. Georgia gets a 24-3 lead in the fourth quarter, and that Richard Bell defense, you know they're going to pass. You know they're going to pass, and here it is. Tech threw that little pass to the running back 6 times. Sean Jones missed twice, so they only completed 4 of those passes to a guy that was wide open. And then every time you looked at their tight end, Vance and Goolsby were wide open. And so I really think Georgia's got a lot of work to do on defense. Their numbers are impressive for the year, but the competition, I think, is a little questionable.
They've given up big yards to all of the good teams we've played. They've given up big yards against.
And the defense really almost cost them that football game.
All right, I think we have a phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Okay. What do you think about Hurst and the Heisman?
All right, thanks for your call. We just went over that. I think we all feel like Toretta will win the award, but we also feel that Hurst probably deserves it.
Right. When you look at if you want to sit there and say, well, this team is number 1, well, the top teams in the country are Alabama and Miami. If you're going to vote for someone because they're number 1, the reason those teams are up there is because of their defense. They're not up there because of Toretta. They're there because of their defense. Vote for a defensive player. Alabama's right there. They're not up there because they're quarterback. I mean, Barker's done a pretty good job, and he does what he's supposed to do, and he doesn't make mistakes. But those guys are there because of Langham and Rogers and Curry and Copeland and all those defensive players.
I think they're mainly there because of those bookends.
Well, let me give you 3 teams that Alabama didn't beat this year: Penn State, Florida State, and Syracuse. You're talking about 3 teams that have been in the top 25 all year. Alabama beat Tennessee. Okay, they beat one team in the top 25. Defense won that game. Toretta had a big hand in winning those 3 big games against top 25 teams for Miami. And I'm not discounting Alabama here, but all I'm saying is you have to give credit where credit's due. And Toretta didn't always have big games, but he won the game. I mean, yes, you're right. The defense won the game, but at the same time, you still have to score enough points to win the game. And Miami was able to do that without basically a running game all year. I mean, they had to throw the ball all year. And so you're looking at it that way. I mean, I think that's what gives Miami that, I don't know if it's a mystique or what it is, but they are something when it comes to big games. I mean, they seem to win them all the time. And you have to give credit to Coach Erickson and his staff because that team is one heck of it. That team is always prepared to play. And in the big games, I mean, you beat Penn State and Florida State back-to-back. That doesn't happen too often in college football, you have to admit.
No, it doesn't happen, but the defense has been there every week. I mean, here it is. They squeaked by a pretty good Arizona team that was unknown at the time. And when push came to shove, it was the defense who won that game. I think, Jeff, it's a lot easier to be consistent with your defense than it is to be with your offense. Toretta has come through in a lot of big games, and then we didn't even mention Syracuse where he threw 3 interceptions, but he did play well enough to help that team win. But the main reason they won that game was because of their defense.
Well, I think every football fan knows that defense wins football games. Let's go to the phones again. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, how you doing?
Pretty good.
I happen to think that Falcons should be in the market for a new quarterback next year because Chris Miller, he's very accident prone. Seems to get hurt every year, and he's doing the team no good being hurt every year. And I happen to think that Garrison Hurst is going to win the Heisman.
All right. Well, we appreciate your opinion and your call. Keep watching the show.
Well, as for Miller always getting hurt, I think maybe the style of offense has something to do with that. Atlanta's got a couple of all-pros in that lineup. You got Mike Ken and Chris Hinton, and then you've got another potential all-pro this year in Jamie Dukes.
I don't forget Bill Fralick.
Yeah, and Bill Fralick. And there's not too many offensive lines in the NFL. I think they can say that. And here it is. Chris Miller's always getting hurt, and I think it's because of this running gun defense, this offense that I really don't like. It really puts your quarterback in too many plays. And like I said, I'd like to see the Falcons get more into a running game and using a tight end and get more into possession football.
Well, I'll tell you, let's remember back a few years with Steve Bartkowski. You had a guy with a great arm with limited mobility, and you had Dan Henning come in here with his Washington Redskin one-back counter-trey offense, and Steve Bartkowski back there. You did not have Joe Theismann back there. You had Steve Bartkowski. Again, what happens here, you have a Don Shula who takes his team, he's got what he's got, and that's the type of offense he runs. He's got a good quarterback. He runs a passing offense, but he always protects Dan Marino, always has. Back in the 70s and late 60s, he had Mercury Morris, Jim Kick, and Larry Zonka. He ran the ball. You take the talent, what you got, and you use it properly. Jerry Glanville, going back to what I was saying earlier, He doesn't have the talent to run and shoot. Chris Miller's not a run and shoot quarterback, but he might be a drop back quarterback in a two-back set or a tight end set. I mean, the guy's got a great arm. He made the Pro Bowl a year ago. I mean, you have to look at situations like that, and you have to use the talent that you have in order to win. And I don't think Glanville is doing that.
I agree.
All right, let's go back to the phones. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, basketball question. Regarding Chicago Bulls, do you think they're going to repeat? It just seems that it's hard to win back-to-back championships 3 times in a row. And second part of the question is, where's the good-looking Babe?
That's what we want to know.
Well, the Babe, I wish you could answer that for us, but we'll try to handle the Chicago question. Thanks for your call.
To be honest with you, I say no. I think the Knicks are going to be the team to beat this year on the Eastern side. Chicago, to me, is a great team, but it is just so hard to win 3 times in a row. If they do, I mean, then I'll be wrong. But I just don't see any team winning in this league 3 years in a row. But it's just too hard, and I think the Knicks are really going to be a tough team to beat this year.
I think the Bulls can get back to the championship, but there's 2 teams in the West they're going to definitely have to contend with. I think the Western Conference is going to come down to Phoenix versus Portland. Charles Barkley is such a huge asset to that team down there. They're already a very talented team. You put a Barkley in there, and he's regarded by most NBA experts as the number 2 player in the league behind Michael. And, of course, the Bulls are so talented. Jordan is something. I mean, he got hurt, and look what happened after he got hurt. The Celtics were able to defeat him. So the Bulls are a great team, but I like either Portland or Phoenix to win it this year.
You know, if they get in the finals with Portland again, I think Chicago's going to win that thing. I really think Phil Jackson's got their number out there, and Portland didn't make the changes that I thought they should have made in the offseason to become a more half-court team. And if he gets them in the finals, he's going to get them in a half-court game again. He's going to beat them again.
All right, back to the phones. Caller, you're on the air.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, dude. Do you have a question?
I guess not. Sounds like they have a party going on over there.
All right, while we're talking about basketball, just real quick on the Hawks. They're 7-7. Are they going to get much above 500 this year?
No, at the beginning of the year, I thought they would be about a 500 team. I thought they would be very happy to be over 5 games over 500. This is a team that, to me, just doesn't seem to have some continuity in their offense, and they're shooting only like 43% right now from the field. That's too low. They need to shoot more like 46, 47% to win games, and their opponents are shooting about 47%. And with that type of shooting, I think the Hawks are lucky to be at 500 right now because I don't think their defense is good enough to shoot at that low of a percentage and still win games.
Well, they're still a 2-player team. I mean, it's Willis and Wilkins. You know, when these guys are on, when Wilkins can carry a team, he can win a game. He's a go-to guy down the stretch. He can really help at ball club. But, again, you have to start looking. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's 30 and 32, 33. You're talking about 2 players who are not exactly, they're starting to get past the prime of their careers. I mean, next few years, they're not going to be around that much longer. You look at the young Hawks on the team. You got Mookie Blaylock, who I think was a good pickup from New Jersey in the trade. Stacey Augmon, who I think is going to be a good NBA player for a long time. And Keefe, the number 1 pick, has shown signs of brilliance for a rookie. I mean, rookies in the NBA don't generally walk in and take over. He's played well in time, so that's what you got to look at. But the bottom line with the Hawks is it's Willis and Wilkins. I mean, these 2 guys they have to have good games for you in order for the Hawks to win.
All right, here we go back to the phones again. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. Would you guys like 4 tickets to the Hawks game tomorrow night? 5th row seats?
Tomorrow night.
That's pretty tempting.
Yeah.
Put that guy on hold.
Unfortunately, my day's going to be wrapped up with that Alabama football game, and then I'm going to want to watch Georgia Tech.
Georgia? Oh, the Georgia what game?
Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech plays Kentucky tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's something we can talk about. Thanks for calling, though. That was a good call.
You don't want any tickets?
We appreciate the offer. It sounds like we're not going to be able to use them, but we do appreciate the offer.
This might be illegal. I don't know.
Okay.
Thanks for the call. All right, Georgia Tech, Kentucky. Let's talk about it.
Well, that's going to be a good test for both teams at the beginning of the season. That was a really good game last year in the Kuppenheimer. Tech got out to a pretty big lead, and Kentucky almost came back and stole one from those guys. Kentucky has just got an awesome team. They are just talented, led by the Monster Mash over there, Mashburn. And Rick Pitino is getting his players that he likes, the the people that he's recruited now into that lineup, into his fun and gun offense that bombs about 53 pointers a game. Tech's going to be in for a treat with their, as far as running their defense. They'll definitely get a test. Georgia Tech, on the other hand, I'm really curious to see how the new kid plays, Martise Moore, involved in that offense. And I really think that one of the most underrated players around is Malcolm Mackey. He's the elder of the team. He's the leader. And to me, that's who I think Tech's got to go to down the stretch, is to win with Mackey.
Well, if you want to look at it as an ACC-SEC matchup, it's very important for Kentucky to win this game. You're talking about the number 1 team in the SEC, and you're talking about the number 3 team in the ACC, 3 or 4 team in the ACC. Tech's got a talented team, and going into Rupp Arena, it's not fun for anybody to play. So this is a big game for Tech. I mean, if Tech were to lose this game, it wouldn't mean nearly as much if they were to win this game for the SEC, because although the SEC had a big win this week with Arkansas beating Memphis State, that's a down year for the SEC and an up year for the ACC, I think, because you've got 4 teams who are definitely going to be in the top 15, in my opinion.
All right, caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Why are the Braves worrying about trying to get Barry Bonds when Greg Maddox would be such a much better acquisition?
All right, good question.
Well,
Thanks for
that's a
your
good
call.
point. Well, you got Barry Bonds, who, you're looking at 2 loads of talent as far as the Braves are concerned. You're talking about an overload of talent in the outfield where they have Gant and Justice and Sanders and Nixon, and you're talking about an overload of talent with starting pitching when it comes to Avery and Glavine and Smoltz, et cetera. You're also talking about a lot of money either way. If you're going to be spending that much money, Maddox would definitely be a good pick. Maddox has pitched in a home run ballpark, and he's done great over the last 5 years or so. The Cubs, if you're a winning pitcher on the Cubs, you're doing something. And but going after Barry Bonds, I think, will be a great idea for the Braves. If they're going to sign one of the 2, I would go after Barry Bonds, though, because I think he's a more impact player. We've got the starting pitch, and no doubt Greg Max would help any team he pitches for. But at the same time, Barry Bonds, I think, would help the Braves more.
You got an issue here. If you sign a guy like Maddox, then you're probably going to have to let a guy like Charlie go, who's in a position to earn $2 or $3 million. If you go ahead and sign Barry Bonds, then you're in a position where you have to sit there and depart with Gant or Justice, because either one of them is going to be ready to make a whole lot of money real soon.
All right, let's go to the phones right quick. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Okay, I have a fucking question.
Oh, well.
He wishes.
Keep it clean, or keep it out. Is that the way?
But, and one more point on the Maddox thing. If you sign Greg Maddox to a huge contract, how is Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, and Steve Avery going to feel about this? If you sign Maddox to a multi-year $1 million contract, what are these guys going to say when their contracts are up? Hey, you went in and got this guy. I mean, we've done it for you. We've got you to the World Series. We haven't won it, but Maddox has never even been to the playoffs. I mean, you're talking about a big situation here, and that would be interesting to see.
Right. I think no matter what team a player like Maddox goes to, when Glavine and some of the others have the tenure to be able to negotiate like that, they're going to want the same money anyway, regardless if he's on the team or not. So if he's going to be out there, and if Uncle Ted has the bucks, so you might as well go get him.
Well, guys, I can't believe we're sitting here talking about signing a starting pitcher or an outfielder. When you look at the Braves, their strengths are starting pitching and outfield. The weakness is the bullpen. Why not go sign a reliever?
Well, if you can go get Todd Worrell, that's great. You're going to have to offer him a few million as well. But, again, you're getting a guy that's got a history of being injured. If the guy can sit there and if you pay him $2 million a year, and if he goes out there and gets 30, 35 saves, he's worth it.
I remember Bruce Sutter, and I don't want to do that.
Well, how about a guy like Tom Henke or somebody of that nature?
I think you're talking about more money than Worrell.
All right, looks like they're giving us the wrap-up sign. We appreciate you tuning into the Press Box. We'll be here at 8:30 next Friday. Enjoyed being with you, and join us next week.